from Watcher Pass, and apologies for the samurai sword. It's the only sword I had. I had to take it for my kids, and I guess they haven't gotten into Arthurian legends yet. But I'm here to talk about The Green Knight, which comes to theaters on July 30th, 2021 from A24. It's a remake. It's a cinematic adaptation of the classic legend, the Green Knight, or I guess it's normally what, Sir Gawain in the Green Knight. But this is a very kind of, it's a visionary take on it. But from what I understand, and from talking to some other people after, it follows the poem fairly accurately. So it's kind of this really interesting film that has, you know, this visionary direction, but also is based on this classic Arthurian tale. So the film is, well, the original tale is written by, who knows, it's anonymous, but the film is adapted for and directed by David Lowery, and it stars just a really interesting cast. You've got Dev Patel, Alicia Vikander, Joel Edgerton, Sarita Choudhury, Sean Harris, Kate Dickie, and Barry Keoghan. So I'm going to go into a quick summary of the film, 3 things I liked, 3 things I didn't like about the movie, and then talk about the ending. So as you can expect, there will be spoilers. If you don't want to know anything about the film, check out the review on watcherpass.com. It's much more vague, lightweight. I don't get the spoilers there. Or, you know, it's a, what, 1,800-year-old legend, so maybe you don't really worry about spoilers. But anyways, you've been warned, so let's get going. The film follows King Arthur's reckless nephew, Gawain, who is kind of living. He at the start, he kind of feels like he is this kid that feels like he's destined for greatness, but also seems to want to goof around a little bit. I mean, you don't get a ton at the start, but that's just kind of what you get from his character. And he gets on Christmas Day. This strange knight, this giant green knight, comes to Arthur's throne room, to the round table, and challenges the knights to a game, where, you know, the game is they can cut him, and then they can get his powerful axe for a year, but then after a year he can cut them. So Arthur's reckless nephew Gawain volunteers. And in a strange, so he gets Excalibur. He goes to confront this knight. The knight, you know, he expects a fight, but the knight just kind of kneels over and lets him cut him however he wants. And Gawain, in a, you know, rash decision, cuts his head off. Thinks it's done. Thinks he's best of the Green Knight. Thinks he'll be legendary. The Green Knight picks up his head, leaves, and says, "I'll see you in a year." So it's this kind of ominous, you know, feel. And so then Gawain just kind of puts around for a year. He doesn't really seem to do anything. And then in a year, he has to go and meet the knight. And so that's where kind of the meat of the story is. It's his journey to meet the knight. So 3 things I really liked about this film. The first is the cinematography and just the whole visual style of it. So the film like recreates Arthurian England, I guess, or the Middle Ages, and it's got these wonderful brick, you know, stone cottages. You've got thatched roofs. You've got a lot of, you know, this armor, this medieval kind of pageantry, that is fully done for this film. It really feels like you transport there, but you also get this like sense of dread. The film or the story itself has this overarching feel of dread, because Gawain is essentially going to his doom to meet the Green Knight. And so the film has this throughout. It's a really beautiful, like, cinematic masterpiece. Like, you've got these just amazing shots, these amazing sets, this wonderful, very visionary, kind of almost dreamlike in some times, camera work and overall design. And it's just something that really is amazing to behold. Now, be warned, you will need to see you should see this in some sort of very high-end setup. I mean, I saw it in the theaters, and even the theater I was in didn't have a screen or a projector that could get dark enough to really appreciate it. Even the dark scenes, they had some light bleed. So, you know, I would watch it if you have a really great setup at home, watch it on that. If you go to one of the fancier screens, I guess, you know, Dolby Cinema, IMAX, one that maybe has better brightness, that would be something. But just be warned, this movie is very dark and physically dark. I mean, it's also a little bit dark as well, but it's physically dark. So make sure to see it in a theater that can handle a very low light movie. The second thing I love is the music, and the music actually might be my thing I like the most about this film. It has an amazing, lute string soundtrack. It feels like a lot of the instruments either were pulled from the Middle Ages time or at least were modeled after. You had lutes, you had like tambourines, you had a lot of string instruments. It was beautiful and very dreamlike. I mean, it kind of felt a little bit like if you've played the video game Braid, it has a feeling like that, like a very kind of string heavy, quiet, dreamlike type of soundtrack that was just amazing. And it was really great to listen to and accompany this film. The last thing I loved are the characters. I mean, this film is filled with very strange, interesting characters. First off is Gawain, played by Dev Patel. He is a kind of a contradiction because he really feels like he wants to be great and feels like he wants to fulfill his destiny, but then he kind of doesn't do it. He either is lazy or he just wants to mess around. So he has these two kind of contradicting aspects to his character. And the people he meets along the way are he meets this scavenger kid played by Barry Keoghan, who is just he is fantastic. Like I love Barry Keoghan. He is an amazing actor, and this character that he portrays has this kind of whimsical nature, almost like a little bit of gesture, but then this very sinister nature that comes in later. And it is a very unsettling character, but it's a wonderful one to see. And he also meets some nobles. He meets a ghost. He meets all these strange individuals along the way that really add some meat to his story. So, three things I didn't love. The first is the pace. I mean, the story is a long. This is a long film. It's over 2 hours, and you have a very slow, methodical pace throughout the film. I think that's probably by design. I mean, I don't think this was meant to be an action-packed film or a film where a ton of stuff happens. I think, like a poem, it kind of progresses at a steady pace, but the pace can be slow, especially in the middle where he's kind of going on his journey. At the start, it's a little more exciting because you're learning about everything, and the end is a very interesting ending. But in the middle, it does kind of slow down, and part of that is because of the second thing I didn't love is the film is just a little it's weird, and I guess that might be because it's based on this legend, and maybe the legend is weird. I mean, I admit I never read Sir Gawain and the Green Knights, so I don't know exactly how it went, but from what I understand, it seems to be accurate, and it was strange. There was a ghost sequence which just felt odd because this movie it had some mystical aspects, but didn't have like supernatural at that point. It had these giant creatures. It had like a talking fox. It has a sequence where he's meeting these nobles, and like one of the nobles is very friendly to him. The other noble is very friendly to him, but also in this like sinister way. So you just have a lot of very strange aspects, and I think that's just because of the underlying story. But it was something that just you'd be watching it, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Whoa! Like what? That was weird." The giants, they felt like they were straight out of like Attack on Titan. They were hairless, didn't really communicate. They communicated in like grunts and like song, and also just they were off in their own world. Like the film had some very strange aspects. There was also some like kind of astral kind of aspects where he's looking up in the sky and seeing stars, and then that kind of transforms down. And also there's a sequence where he like eats a poison like drug mushroom and kind of messes with him. So the film itself is just very strange. The last thing I you might not like is the ending, but I also kind of loved it. So I'm just gonna go right into the ending. Um, I think the ending both redeems this film and then also kind of damns it. It's really strange. So here's what happens at the end. Again, spoilers, but again, this is an Arthurian legend. So I think the only known version was about 800 years ago. So I don't know if you can spoil something that's 800 years old, but you've been warned. So Sir Gawain, in a very roundabout way, like I don't know how he actually gets here because it seems like he just goes all sorts of directions, but eventually he ends up at the Green Chapel. And when he's there, he meets the Green Knight. The Green Knight seems surprised to see him. He gets up, gets ready to deliver his cut because you remember the game was Sir Gawain gets to cut him, use his axe for a year, and then the Green Knight gets to cut him back. And so since Gawain cut his head off, the Green Knight's going to do the same. And so, side note, games in the Middle Ages seemed like they kind of sucked, but that's what the game was. He agreed to it. There it is. So he gets ready, he gets on his, his knees, he bows his head, ready to take the blow. And then he says, "No, stop, wait." And he's very emotional. And this is Dev Patel does a fantastic job here. Like you can see the weight of like him trying to trying to fulfill his honor and fulfill his vow, but then also not want to die yet. And so eventually, after about the third time, he says, "I'm ready." And then as soon as the Green Knight is about to, cut it out, he like actually starts the swing. Uh, Sir Gawain just, says, "Oh, sorry, I can't," like, "Stop," and then just like runs away. He runs out of the chapel, runs down the river, and to this very convenient horse. He finds his horse. His horse disappeared earlier. His horse is there. He reunites with his horse, gets on, and just rides straight home. And then when he gets home, he sees, his mother. He sees King Arthur. Arthur seems happy to see him. He knights him there because he's fulfilled his quest. He went and confronted the Green Knight, and none of this has any talk, any speaking. So it's a very interesting dream-like progression through Gawain's life. So he gets knighted. He eventually becomes king when Arthur dies, and then you kind of see, but he's changed. I think, the fact that he didn't fulfill his vow changes him into a more bitter person. So he becomes more of a tyrant, and he does some really terrible, terrible things. He fathers a child with his, I think she might be a prostitute, with his prostitute girlfriend, and then he goes and like steals the child from her and just pays her in gold. I mean, I don't think he doesn't kill the child, but he raises the child away from her so she can essentially never see him again. He gets married to some noblewoman who they then, then he has this probably kind of loveless marriage, and then he becomes kind of a tyrant. You see him walk through the city, and someone throws manure at him, and that person gets killed, and you just see him slowly kind of devolve. Whereas where King Arthur was loved, he seems to become kind of hated, and he looks like he becomes hated. He looks like he's sad and just stoic. And eventually, you hear some unrest outside of his castle, and you see his knights running towards a door, and you see his wife and child flee. And then, also before this, in some of his campaigns, his son dies in a campaign. Fast forward to the siege on his castle. His knights are running out to stop it, and it feels like when they finally break down the door, you see Arthur's face, or you see Gawain's face, and then it fast forwards, or fast backwards, I guess. It pulls back to Gawain before the Green Knight. So plot twist, that was just him seeing his life, and he looks, now he looks kind of resolved. He says, "I'm ready," and then the Green Knight says, "Well done, my brave knight. Now off with your head." And then they don't show him getting beheaded, but then the film ends. So, as I said, like the ending, it redeems it, as because it is such an amazingly crafted end, where it kind of throws you for this loop, because you see him become this hated tyrant, and then he goes back and, I guess, makes the right choice. But then again, when you kind of think of the whole story, I mean, the story is about him going through, the whole story is his journey there, and he's tested in many different ways. His character is tested throughout. He's tested physically, mentally, emotionally, over these 6 days. But in the end, like, essentially the story of Sir Gawain is, he was this kind of reckless kid. He takes this challenge, kills his knight, has a year to kind of prepare and live life, but he doesn't do it. He just kind of sits there, has this 6-day journey, which is eventful, but again, it's also only 6 days. Gets to the Green Chapel, and then just dies. Like, he gets killed. I mean, I guess maybe that's part of the tragedy of the story, but I also felt a little meaningless, right? Like, his life was almost, I guess he died nobly, but did he? I don't know. So the ending is a mixed bag. I think overall this film has, it's kind of polar opposites in my mind, because there's so many things I loved about this film, and so many things this didn't sit right with me. So I think ultimately this is probably a rental, although it is an amazing piece of cinema. So if you really are interested in this film, or this director, or any of these stars, it's worth seeing. But I think there's just enough strangeness going on, and the story itself is a fairly long story. So, you could also wait and rent it and see it in the comfort of your home. So that's The Green Knight. It releases in theaters July 30th, 2021. And thank you so much for watching. If you liked this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot and make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.